Hi, my name is Nick. I'm our Student Government Association president, and I'm here today to talk to President Nariman Farvardin on leadership. Welcome, President Farvardin.
Thank you very much.
So, President Farvardin, you've held a variety of different leadership positions. Tell me, what are some of the most effective strategies that you've found in refining your leadership over time?
Thank you, Nick. This is a profound question, and I'm asked that question often. I've been thinking about this over a long period of time. I think one of the most important things about being an effective leader is to know exactly what is the vision that you're developing and have an idea about how you convert that vision into practice. Now, having done the vision and the implementation of the vision, a very important component of success in leadership is surrounding yourself with outstanding people. Outstanding people. And in addition to that, I would say there is no replacement for working hard, for being intense, for being determined, for being unrelenting in dealing with and overcoming challenges. It's the combination of all of these things that would make for a recipe for success in leadership positions.
And when you talk about having exceptional people or working with them, what are some of the ways that you've, in your career, found success in finding the right people? And then I imagine holding them close to you is incredibly important as well.
It's never easy. Finding the right people is never easy. But over the years, you develop a feel for who are the people who have the right chemistry with you and with the rest of the team. That chemistry obviously is extremely important. But I also have some criteria that I use invariably in selecting the people that I bring to my team. The most important criterion that I have a very uncompromising attitude about is the person must have impeccable integrity. Impeccable integrity. I always say, if you have integrity, nothing else matters. If you don't have integrity, nothing else matters. So that's a prerequisite. Beyond that, I want people to be a member of my team, the close team that I work with, who can run with me at my pace. We can't afford to have a mismatch there. I obviously need people who have domain expertise. If they're in charge of finance, they have to be extremely experienced and knowledgeable about finance. If they're in marketing, they have to be good in marketing. If they're in academics, they have to have extensive experience, and they must have been strong academic person themselves. But at the end of the day, you pick these people based on what your gut tells you. Hopefully, oftentimes, you make the right choice, but it's always possible to make a mistake. And if you make a mistake, you ought to be prepared to correct it quickly.
Understood. Yeah, and you talked a little bit about keeping up with your pace. And I think a lot of people that have the opportunity to work with you say that you have a lot of energy. And I think that's common, at least across really impactful leaders. What's kind of your driver? What keeps you motivated? How do you sustain those levels of energy?
That's a difficult question to answer, but I think what drives me is my commitment to taking my responsibilities seriously. When I accepted to be president at Stevens, I accepted that responsibility with certain goals in my mind. And while we have partially achieved some of the goals, we are still very, very far from achieving all of the goals. So these goals are in the forefront of my mind. And I am striving, I'm working very hard, I remain passionate, and I apply as much energy as I possibly can to try and achieve those goals. So having a destination in mind is a great motivation. So I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Since you're the president of the student government, you are representing the interests and the issues and the priorities of a large student body. This student body is very diverse. There are students from different parts of the country. There are students with different types of interests. There are students from different majors. There are students who are first-year students. There are students who are much more senior. How do you make sure you incorporate the interests of all these students in what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, I think this is also a very multifaceted question to answer. But I think thinking incredibly intentionally about the groups of students that you want to connect with and understanding that connecting with them is going to look very differently at times, and sourcing their feedback and ideas and even just getting in touch with them. So a couple of things that I've found pretty impactful is finding different ways just to collect feedback or survey students. I know we have a running joke that students don't read their emails, here, but just college students in general. So something that we did recently was we put these large poster boards in different high traffic areas where there's a lot of students so that they could just, there's questions at the top and we leave Post-its around and they can respond at any time, right? So that's just an example of finding different mechanisms to kind of just collect feedback and engage with all the different diverse bodies of students in the masses. But I think on a personal note, it's also finding different ways to connect with people. I'm a big proponent of coffee chats, but beyond that, I think finding anything social to do is really important, especially when it gets you out of your comfort zone. I think so coffee chats are totally in my comfort zone, but I've had students invite me to like a pickleball game and that's that's kind of like our introductory way of getting to know each other. And then from there, we might, establish a connection and have a really cool conversation, whether it yields anything of impact after that, but nonetheless, you're connecting with the people.
It gives you an opportunity to get to know your people, students from different parts of the university, students with different backgrounds, and that way you can better represent their views.
Absolutely.
I'd like to ask you a follow-on question. There is a challenging component in your position as president of the SGA compared to mine, in that your position is only for a short period of time. Mine presumably could be for a much longer period of time. And if you want to have an impact, you need time. So if you are thinking about doing things that will end up having a lasting impact, how will you make sure that you pass the baton from yourself to the next president of the SGA in order to make sure that those things that you promoted as priorities for the SGA will not go by the wayside in the next cycle?
Yeah, I think I'll actually have to revisit a point that you once told me last December, and that was your piece of advice was to make your vision other people's vision. And I've held that very close to me. And so an example of this is one thing really important to me is student-faculty interaction. I know that's also a big priority of yours. But I think helping people really understand the importance behind kind of what your vision is, like the mission, the purpose, and why it has an impact. So for student-faculty interaction, I think our professors are exceptional mentors. They're great for helping students navigate their careers, and they're also just really good people to look up to. So that's why I care deeply about it. Explaining that and kind of helping more students understand that, I think gets more people unified behind the vision, and it makes them more likely to care about it and then contribute to the vision as well.
Terrific. I'm very glad that you remembered my advice, and I'm equally happy to know that student-faculty interaction is a priority for you and hopefully will be a priority for future generations of SGAs and SGA presidents. As you all know, it is a high priority for me and for the university administration and for all members of the community who are on the payroll. We consider ourselves servants to students, and if we don't do everything that, in my opinion, is humanly possible to improve the student-faculty interaction, we're not doing our job right. But if the students understand the importance of this and they help us, ultimately the student body will be the beneficiary.
Yeah, I completely agree. And on that note, I think one thing that's very special about Stevens is things move relatively fast. I think by and large, if students are upset or uncomfortable with something, when they escalate their concern, something's done about that. I imagine that doesn't just happen, the pace at which change is possible. How have you kind of contributed to this and ensured that, when problems arise, they're quickly, I don't want to say extinguished, but dealt with, and, we reflect on them and then kind of contribute to addressing them?
Well, in general, higher education is well known for not being quick. I don't like that. That is counter to my personality, and I think it is not aligned with our priority of being a student-centric university. In this extremely dynamic world where we live, where things change very rapidly, if you don't move at least as fast as the rest of the world, you will fall behind. So being nimble and being quick is a priority for our institution in everything that we do. But when it comes to students, it's even more of a priority. As I said, we've been talking for more than a decade about how important it is for this university to be a student-centric institution. If you're student-centric, if there is an issue that students bring up, whether it's a suggestion or whether it's an issue that needs to be rectified, it's incumbent upon us to take it seriously and to act on it correctly. How do we do that? In part, by having the vision of being a student-centric institution, being the vision for all members of the community, all members of the administration, all faculty members, and then to be well organized and to communicate nicely internally between the different offices of the university, so that we don't give students a runaround, but that we get to the bottom of the issue or to promote their good suggestions as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Thinking more broadly, I guess a question for some of the younger leaders, what would be your advice to young students today? Since I think one of those core missions of Stevens is making sure that students, have adequate leadership capabilities. So what would be your advice to young leaders today?
Well, I think the most important piece of advice for our students or future young leaders is the observation that I made earlier, that we live in a very dynamic world, extremely dynamic, more dynamic than I have ever witnessed it, and a world in which technology is evolving extremely fast. Therefore, my main message to our students is to focus on learning fundamentals in such a way that enables them to learn for life. Because what they know today is not necessarily what they need to know 5 or 10 years down the line, unless they know the fundamentals. If they know the fundamentals, they can continue to build on that. That's advice number one. Advice number two is that word about integrity. Integrity is doing the right thing when people are not even watching you. And if you take that in and apply that principle in everything that you do in your personal and in your professional life, that will guarantee a bright future for you. The combination of a rigorous foundational education plus integrity puts you on the right track.
Exceptional. Yeah. And on your first point of those really important foundational things, thinking about how dynamic society is and the way the world is going, what do you think some of those things are right now that students should be following closely, or that maybe even you're keeping up to date?
Well, when it comes to foundational things, there are a few things that, in my opinion, play a pivotal role. I would never compromise on my knowledge of mathematics. math is foundational. Physics, chemistry, basic sciences. The values of our democracy. Ethics. These are foundational. If the things that I just mentioned are part of, or a significant part of the educational experience that you've gone through, you will be able to build on them. So whether you know a particular programming language today is foundational, the answer is no, because that programming language 10 years from now will be obsolete. There will be another programming language. But if you know the basic concepts of programming, if you know the basic concepts of mathematics, if you know the basic concepts of analyzing data, then the technology of the day will not matter to you. You will be able to learn as you go. Awesome. I have one last question to ask you, and that is about your time management. Because obviously you're a student, you're going through a rigorous academic program, you have all the academic demands on you, and on top of that, you're the president of the SGA. How do you manage your time in order to be able to get everything done properly and not make anybody unhappy with you being too slow or too unresponsive?
So it's something I spend a lot of time thinking about, actually. And one, I'll share kind of a method that I learned actually just from reading an article. So the first thing, this article uses the metaphor of a kitchen. And you should think of, or it emphasized that you should think of your time as a kitchen. So you have think of your stove. You have your front burner, and those are your most important priorities for the day, the things that you cannot compromise. And then you have your second burner. Those are the things that are very important, but obviously the first burner triumphs that. Then you have your kitchen sink, and that's kind of the mess of everything, right? Those are maybe your administrative tasks, the extra things that you need to get done, maybe some quick things. And the last thing is counter space that it advocates that you have. And that's to expand on those first two burners, so you just leave it blank. And it's to because everything always takes longer than you think it will. So I think using that simple method, and I do actually regularly use that almost every single day. And then I think the second piece is just reflecting on how I spend my time, thinking back, whether it's a day or a week, looking back, and if I notice that I'm unhappy or dissatisfied with what I got done, I think it's worth reflecting on or thinking about, how I spent that time. And likewise, when things are working, and I'm, feeling very accomplished and I achieved a lot, then I'd also like to take note of those moments too.
Good. I'll remember the kitchen metaphor.
Yeah. Thank you, President Farvardin. I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Thank you, Nick. It was a pleasure speaking with you.